Hi, it's Jen back with week 3 of our North Pole Sampler Sew Along, where we get to make our gifts. Don't we all love gifts at Christmas time? We have plenty of those in this quilt. 2 rows of 5 gifts sewn together with sashing in between, one up here and one down here. We've already gotten the bottom one put together and 4 of the 5 put together in the upper portion of the quilt, and we'll be making that 5th block together, which will be our snow globe, which is also our backing fabric. If you haven't already picked up your backing fabric, boy, I'd encourage you to grab that. It's so nice to have a coordinating fabric on the back, especially a collection that's very specific like this. And of course, there's limited quantities of backings remaining, and potentially by the time you've watched this film, it's possible that it may already be gone. So you never know. Things are rolling right along and people are scooping up the kits as they're discovering this is really a lot of fun to make this project. The gift blocks have some things we've already done. It's always nice to go back and practice what we've done in the previous block, and what's in common is making the half square triangles. We did that before when we were making our previous block, and now we'll be doing it again. So with our block here, we have our bow portion made out of our blue and white polka dot. So I'll grab that out. That's here, and a white fabric. And again, I just wanted to introduce that option to you. You can be drawing the line with your straight 2.5 inch by 6.5 inch ruler and a friction pen, drawing the line, placing the fabrics right side together, going to the seam allowance and sewing 1/4 inch on either side of the line. That's what is included inside your pattern. Another option will be that Fons and Porter 1/4 inch seam marker, which just makes it a little bit easier because you don't have to worry, is my 1/4 inch seam allowance exactly where it's supposed to be? Because all you'll be doing now is sewing on a drawn line. I'll grab the shorter one. Remember, there's 2 in that pack, so if you're making really big half square triangle units, you already have one that's super big and will accommodate that. I don't need one that big, so I'll just be using the smaller one, putting my yellow line from corner to corner, drawing on my line. I'll just hold that steady while I draw that, and we're going to take that to our sewing machine, and we're going to sew on those drawn lines. Let's do that right now. I'll be using a starter strip again. We did that last block. I really like how it worked out. So let's just keep going with that starter strip. And I'll be sewing right on that line. So I'm going to tuck up here real close. When I get to the end, my needle is stopped down. If you have that feature on your machine, I encourage you to use it. Pull out a little bit of thread, pivot around, and just start again. Let's trim off that starter strip and let's just keep using it. I really like that. I don't have to worry about the machine. Can kind of just get going and then go right into piecing whatever it is that I've brought to the machine. All right, we'll use our ruler corner to corner, and we will just go ahead and separate that. Just like we did before, we're going to press, and you can see the back of this. I'll show you this so you can always see the back, so you're not wondering where we're pressing our seams. Notice we press toward the dark here, so we will follow suit with that. Press toward the dark. And just like we did for last week, let's go ahead and trim off that dog ear. We don't need extra fabric. Goodness knows there's a lot going on where these fabrics get sewn together, and having extra fabric in there is not helpful. It is not moving us in the right direction. Okay. I just want to have that a little bit flatter. Good and flat. think my iron might have cooled down on me. Let's see. Okay, it's going to heat up again. So looking at, you've got, of course, the top of the gifts, you've got a variety of colors. So I'm just using the dark navy blue polka dot, but of course you're going to be following suit with the light aqua, the green, and the 2 reds. So you're going to be making more of those quilt tops, and you'll be using your diagram here to lay everything out. So you've got your 2 pieces like that. And notice there's these 2 pieces out here. Those are our piece G's. So let's just check here. It's really important that that measures 2.5. In this creative grid, 2.5 by 6.5 is just conveniently 2.5 inches. So if I lay my ruler on there, look how it perfectly fits that footprint. I'll do it over here so you can maybe see it a little bit better. It's fitting in that perfect little footprint, 2.5, and it fits it beautifully. If your half square triangles are too small or too big, we need to bring them down to 2.5, or the pieces that are added to the side of your bow will not be the right length. So don't be tempted to trim these down. These just need to be measuring 2.5 inches at this point. So before we sew those side pieces on, let's go ahead and just sew this unit together. And again, I'm gonna actually start down here where I have more of my bulk. I need that coming together beautifully. I'm gonna start down here. I'm gonna put a pin in there. I don't want anything to not even move a touch. And we'll grab our starter strip and let's go. Okay. Like we did last week when we have something like this where you've got a lot of bulk, we'll just go ahead, warm up that seam, and we'll press it open. I can't believe we're already at week 3 here. This is zooming right along, and hopefully you're enjoying that. Join the conversation. Leave us a comment. Hopefully you're having fun, and if you've had a friend that's always wanted to learn to quilt and they maybe haven't jumped on board, get them going. They can always watch these videos later and catch up, especially if you're encouraging them and potentially helping them throughout, making the blocks. So as we see here, we will be adding our 2 pieces on the end. So I'm going to pin that one here. So I know that sewing is coming. Right, that's coming, and that one. And I know I'm going to sew down here, and I'm going to pivot around. That's why I'm going to have this pin facing this direction. Did you notice that, how I don't have both pins facing upright? Because I know I'm going to sew down here. Give myself some thread, pivot around, and come back down here. And then I'm only having to, I don't have to cut my thread. Let's go do that. So give myself a little bit of a pivot, and we'll start again. You probably already know how we should be pressing this based on what we did last time, that when you open that up, boy, there's a lot of bulk over here, so we're definitely going to be pressing out here. So let's do that right now. So we have the top portion of our gift, and you can make all of those and just set those aside. Now let's move on to the bottom portion of our gift, and again we'll be making this snow globe. So it's pretty straightforward to see. This is where I'll be using my pressing mat as a layout guide too. I just want to make sure that I'm laying everything out. Now think about this. Notice how my snow globe here is upside down. This is a square. This is your chance to rotate this however you want it. So you do have a chance to have kind of a picture that you're going to find pleasing, and the fabric can be oriented the way you want, knowing that this is going to be the top of the block. So as we're seeing here, we have piece T, because we're making this one together. The short piece will be in between here. Let's make sure they're the same length, and I can see that they are because we cut that out very carefully. And that's going to be going like this. And then once those are sewn together, of course, you'll have a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Then this will be the right size. So why don't we come here and come here. And that very first video when I made that, I got lazy with pinning. I'm not doing that again, guys. I'm going to pin this whole time for the rest of this video. Let's head over to our machine and let's sew those 2 pieces right now. Oh, looks like our starter strip kind of got a little bunched up. That's okay. I think that'll iron out. We'll check it out. If we need to seam rep and start again, we will. Stuff like that just happens sometimes. I think we'll be okay. So let's think about this. Let's look at what we did. On the back of that, we just pressed everything toward the center, sashing the whole time. We're considering these little sashing strips just like we did in the previous. So we'll press toward our navy. Oh, this is so cute already. And we'll do the same. So that was here and that was here. So there and there. You could sew from either side. It doesn't matter whether you sew from this side or this side. I'm just going to sew from this side. Sometimes there's an advantage to sewing on one side or the other. I don't really feel like there is here, so we'll just sew on this side. All of our little labels. Fun, fun. Keeps things organized. We can just grab and go. We don't have to be, is that my piece? Especially with the white. Gosh, there's a lot of pieces that are off by only 1/4 of an inch measurement. So having everything labeled ahead of time is just going to save you so much time. You don't accidentally grab the wrong fabric. Okay, pressing toward the center again. Oh gosh, that's cute. Snow globes. I just love snow globes. They're so beautiful. It reminds me of my grandma's house in Michigan, where she had these snow globes on like these tables in her living room next to what she called the Davenport, which we now call the couch. And I used to shake them up, and it was just like this scene, like there was a cottage in there and a snowman. It's very sweet. I love it. Okay, so we have, let's make sure, look at that. Hey, things went really well. That sashing strip fits beautifully. So we're going to put our sashing strip here, just like we've been doing, right, ladies and gentlemen, if you're out there sewing along too. Hey, yay to the guys for joining the fun. I love that. Let's pin in the beginning and the end. And, you know, I'm just going to kind of flatten that out, pinning right in the middle. And let's go sew that. This block's coming together fast. Okay, just like before, press toward the sashing. Let's stay consistent with that. There'd be no reason to change that at this point. Okay, so we have our piece here, and just like before, you really want that ribbon. Can you imagine if the ribbon is off, right? You really need it to be lining up, and I can see if I pin here and I pin here, that's going to be very nicely lined up. So I feel confident that I can go ahead and just pin there, pin here, I'm just going to take a quick peek. Looks like it's all lined up. See that right there? This is stacked on top of that. I'm going to lay that down right there. I'm going to pin that. I'm going to pinch that together. I don't want that to move. I want that to line up very nicely. Okay, let's go sew that final seam on the lower portion of our gift. I don't know if you noticed that pin I had in the end was in the way of my sewing path. I don't, as a habit, sew over pins. I've had that go very badly, and you know, broke off a pin and it went down inside my machine, not my BERNINA, thank goodness. But it can happen, so I don't recommend sewing over pins as a result of that, my experience. Okay, let's press toward that center again. And the lower portion of our block is done. Now we made particular care to figure out where we wanted our globes to be so that it presents. So whatever you feel is up to you, you want to orient that there. And then let's bring in our upper portion. And again, if I line everything up, of course, this is supposed to be equidistant from our seam. It looks like if we just pin that in place, everything's going to line up beautifully. Let's pin that. Let's see here. I've got this little piece of fabric that's bugging me right here. Sometimes that happens. It could be either through a matter of pressing. I feel like I'm quite straight across here. Sometimes I'm just going to trim off that little edge because it's messing up my lineup right now. Okay? I think that through my pressing, going too fast, I kind of distorted that. That can happen sometimes. So let me line up here. If something's bugging you, stop and figure out why it's bugging you and what the best course of action is. I'm going to pin out there. And we want that to split that, right? So it's going right down the middle of that sashing. I'm going to pin that so it doesn't move. One here and one down here. Okay, our final seam to make our block unit here. Let me get my starter strip. See this point right here? If my machine goes right over top of that, right over top of it, I know that that's going to be where I want it to be when I open this up. Let's look at that more closely. It's kind of like a visual target.
Let's check that out. That's one of the beauties of when you press a seam open. So it is a visual point. See how I actually was a little bit shy on that? I'm going to actually go resew that. I want to show you, here, let's emphasize this. Real life quilting again. See how that really should have been tucked in a little bit deeper? But look at this. Do you see how my threads are short of that point right there? And you can see my seam allowance was wider here than here. That sometimes happens when you enter a bulky area because your machine is struggling to go over that. I'm going to actually seam rip this. I'm going to seam rip this, and I'm going to come back and I'm going to nail that point so that when I open that up, that is truly all the way down, and you don't see this little bit of blue right here. So let's do that. I'll seam rip that, and we're going to do that again because we're here to learn, and I want to show you what happens sometimes when you're sewing units together, when they don't land exactly where you want them to land. And everyone has a different tolerance, I would say, of what's acceptable to them in their sewing room. But because I want beginners to understand, I've been doing this since I was a young woman, which I am no longer a young woman, and I still make these slight errors that kind of just, you know what, they bother me because one of the things I love about piecing is it challenges my accuracy with sewing. And that's one of the fun things about doing piecing. So let's just work on this together. I feel good about my seam allowances out here. It just got a little bit shallower here. So let's go ahead, we're gonna repin that where it should be, making sure I'm still, yep, still where I should be. And I'm gonna pick that up right about in here. All right, where I've got my good 1/4 inch seam allowance and I'm not letting anything deviate from that. Right now, I'm looking at this point. So as I come into it, my gate is here. Look how I just crossed over that. Now, when I pull this off the sewing machine, it's going to be where I want it to be. Was that just minorly different? Yes. But for me right now, it's a teaching point for you to just show you that if you keep your eye on that visual target, you're going to be happier with the results. See how it just fits now in that valley? Just a little bit better than before. Was it completely unacceptable? No. But is it a way to just be something to focus our attention on whenever we are sewing? Yes, it's definitely an area to focus on. So let's look here at the back of how they press that. In this instance, it looks like they chose to press downward. You could press that downward, you could press that open. It's really not one advantage over the other, I think, so you can choose what you like. There's a lot of more bulk going on up here in this portion than down here, so that's perhaps why they chose to go ahead and press that way. So now I'm much happier with the way that bow looks. So let's look at our unit here. This one is already done, so we'll put that aside. Now is when that sashing strip comes into play. We've already put our sashing strip, so this goes here, and our block goes here. So just like before, we're going to sew our sashing strip to a side of our block. I'm just going to press that out just a little bit better. I love it when the pieces fit. That's always a good sign, right, guys? When your sashing strip fits your block, you know that your block is the right size. That's always a good sign. Okay, we are so close to having this whole unit put together with sashing strips on, and we'll be off to block or week 4 here in no time. just like we've been doing all along, we're going to press toward our white. Oh, how cute is this? Adorable is what it is. And then we'll lay that here, right sides together. We're going to pin. So cute. So, so cute. Beginning and end. This is already old hat to you, right? You already know how to pin. You know how to press. Fix those mistakes. Think about directions of things you want to press because it matters. We've already shown that that matters. I think I've lost my shorter strip somewhere, so we're going to sew this one without it, which is fine. Let's just get going. I'll just hold my thread and we will get going. Oh my goodness, this is our final seam. That's amazing. So fun. I do recommend, just like I mentioned before, make one block, make one complete gift block with the gift portion and the bow. Make sure you're comfortable, make sure everything's coming out the way that it should be. We do give you measurements along the way. Check the size of those blocks to make sure everything's coming out. And then you could be doing things in a more efficient way where you're doing the same steps for each portion, doing all the half square triangles, adding all the different pieces, just where you're doing a lot more of the chain stitching and it'll come together in no time. Look at that, it's absolutely adorable. So we now have two pieces, two strip units that each have 5 gifts. That is week 3. I hope you're having fun. Leave us some feedback. I'm having a great time. We're coming back here in another week and we'll be working on the holly portion of the quilt right in this section. So I'll see you then.